What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's enjoying their Tuesday so far. We are back with another preview and prediction special, this time looking at the upcoming college baseball regionals, which will be kicking off on Friday and going all the way until Monday to our if necessary games into Game 7. So definitely an exciting time if you're a college baseball fan. We'll have baseball throughout the weekend and then the next couple of weeks leading up to the 2025 Men's College World Series. So today we're going to be doing our official preview and predictions of the 2025 regionals, going from the top overall seed being Vanderbilt to the number 16 seed in Southern Miss. We're going to look at region by region, make our picks of who's going to win the regional, as well as who's going to be the runner-up in each regional. So if you want to do this as well, D1 Baseball Bracket Challenge, that's what we're using today. So you can go ahead and fill out your brackets over there too. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. Going with the number one overall seed being the Vanderbilt Commodores out of the SEC. It looked like the majority of the season that this was going to be Texas' spot to really lose, but Texas has dealt with some injuries. It kind of sputtered at the end of the season, although they did get the SEC regular season champs. Vanderbilt ended up winning the SEC tournament championship, which was a really historic feature for them because Vanderbilt was a team that started off SEC play 7-7. Ended up finishing off their final stretch of games being 11-4. Ended up beating Ole Miss to win the tournament title. So we see Vanderbilt in a familiar spot as the number one overall seed. Then a team that they're quite familiar with is the number 2 seed, the Louisville Cardinal out of the ACC. The 3 seed is East Tennessee State, and East Tennessee State could definitely give all these teams some problem, as well as the number 4 seed, Wright State. Wright State is always a team that could definitely make some noise in this tournament. But I just don't really see anybody competing with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has one of the best pitching staffs in the country, and their offense has definitely been striding throughout the past couple of weeks here. So Vanderbilt, especially with the home crowd at Hawkins Field, I just think that the Vandy boys are going to cruise to this regional. And Louisville is going to be my runner-up, so I really have chalk unfolding there in the Nashville Regional. And we'll see if Vanderbilt can do what Tennessee did last year. Tennessee was able to break that curse, you could say, of the number 1 overall seed having some trouble. Tennessee was the number 1 overall seed, and they ended up winning the national championship last year. That was the first time since 1999 when Miami did that. So we'll see if Vanderbilt has the horses to do the same thing that Tennessee did last season. So we have Vanderbilt ultimately winning the Nashville Regional, with Louisville coming in as the runner-up. Now let's go on to the Hattiesburg Regional, which features the number 16 overall seed Southern Miss out of the Sun Belt. Southern Miss did not win the conference tournament championship against Coastal Carolina. That was a heck of a game if you're able to tune into that one. But Southern Miss, heck of a ball club. This is a club that could definitely pitch it. Their lineup could also bang it out of the ballpark as well. So this is a team that's not really going to be easy out, though. This is a hard regional looking at it. Number 2 seed out of the SEC is Alabama. They are led by Riley Quick. So Riley Quick, more than likely, their ace will be who Miami will be facing off against in game number 1. And speaking of Miami out of the ACC, they were a bubble team, one of the last 4 teams into this field. Miami started off the ACC strong, and then the second half wasn't too pretty for the Miami Hurricanes. So Miami is the number 3 seed, and Columbia, the 4 seed out of the Ivy League, ended up winning their conference tournament to get that automatic qualifying bid. So this is definitely going to be a tough regional, though I think that it's going to come down to Southern Miss and Alabama. That's against Miami and Columbia. I've seen a lot of people going with Alabama to pull off the upset, but I'm going to go with the home team. I think that Pete Taylor Park is definitely going to be rocking this weekend. I think that Southern Miss is going to get it done. So give me Southern Miss to win the regional. So once again, I have 1 and 2 seeds. I know it's all chalk so far, but I'm going to go with Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles, to prevail, as we have Vanderbilt and Southern Miss both advancing from their respective region in Nashville and Hattiesburg. So as we move on now down to the bracket, let's go on to the Tallahassee Regional, which features the number 9 overall seed in the field, Florida State out of the ACC. This is definitely a club that could definitely make some noise, especially with leading pitcher Jamie Arnold. I'm going to be interested to see if Florida State holds Arnold for the winner of Mississippi State or Northeastern. Does Arnold go in game number 1 against a really solid ball club in Bethune-Cookman, the 4 seed? who had some late game heroics with that walk-off home run to beat Florida A&M to win the SWAC championship. So Bethune-Cookman, definitely an offense-style ball club that's definitely going to play nice to this ballpark. And then the 2 seed Northeastern. Let's talk about Northeastern. 48-9 on the season, and they're coming into this tournament red hot. They have won 27 straight games, which is absolutely unheard of in college baseball. Then the number 3 seed Mississippi State. This was a team just a couple of weeks ago fired their coach and Chris Lemonis, and they have just been absolutely scorching. They did get bounced early in the SEC tournament, losing to the number 14 seed Texas A&M, who is not in the field. So Mississippi State, led by Pico Khan, I expect him to go against Northeastern. I think that he's definitely going to give that Northeastern ball club some trouble there. So once again, I am going to go with the number 1 overall seed in the regional, make it out of it. I definitely could see either Northeastern or Mississippi State getting it. And this time I'm going to shake it up. I am going to go with Mississippi State as the runner-up, the 3 seed. Nothing against Northeastern. I just like the way that this Mississippi State ball club has been playing down the stretch. I think that they're really playing loose. I mean, with the interim head coach. And last time that they faced off against Florida State, Elijah McNamara was able to hit that walk-off home run to eliminate the Seminoles. So we'll see. Mississippi State has more Tallahassee magic. I don't see it. I see it running out, though, with Florida State advancing on to this regional. Now let's go on to the number 8 overall national seed. And just a note, if you are a top 8 national seed, you are able to host both the regional and the super regional round. So let's now move on to the number 8 seed, the Oregon State Beavers, an independent. This is the only independent in the field. They've had to go on the road and play a lot of neutral site games, but their resume is quite outstanding with a record of 41-12-1 overall. So the Beavers are once again a familiar spot. It feels like every year that they're at least hosting one round in Corvallis. They get a red-hot TCU team that ended up falling in the Big 12 championship game against Arizona. TCU had an early season series that probably left them out against Southern Miss. Southern Miss ended up taking 2 of 3 from the Horned Frogs. So that ended up leaving TCU out of the discussion to be a top 16 seed. But this is a scary 2 seed going out to the West Coast. USC is back to the field. They're one of the bubble teams that were on the fence. Are they going to get in or not? And then number 4 seed St. Mary's, and they definitely had a game. I believe they played San Diego, and that was a heck of a game. A couple of games, I should say, out there in the West Coast. I'm actually going to go with my first upset, if you want to call it. Give me the TCU Horned Frogs, the 2 seed, to advance out of this Corvallis regional. I think that this is definitely going to be an offensive regional. I am going to go with TCU, and I will go with Oregon State, the 1 seed. So that's our first national seed falling in this regional round. So in this little pod, I have the 9 seed Florida State advancing, as well as our first number 2 seed in TCU. I'm just going to say it might not be the last number 2 seed that I have advancing on into the super regional round. Now let's move on down the bracket here on the left side, as we have the Chapel Hill Regional, which features one of the red-hot teams in the country, the number 5 overall seed in this field of 64, the North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina was really in the same familiar position last season ago. They were the number 4 overall national seed. LSU was in that regional. North Carolina was able to get out of that. And then they hosted West Virginia to go on to Omaha. And North Carolina, like I mentioned, they dominated the ACC tournament, ended up winning the ACC tournament championship game against Clemson in pretty much a rout. That game was never close. So North Carolina, definitely going to be a tough out, especially at their home ballpark. They do have an interesting number 2 and number 3 seed, with number 2 seed Oklahoma, led by Kyson Witherspoon, one of the best pitchers in all of college baseball. Oklahoma was able to get a couple of wins in Hoover to really bolster their resume, to potentially moving them off of the 3 line into the 2 line. And same with the number 3 seed, Nebraska. Nebraska had to win the Big Ten Conference tournament. They were able to do that back-to-back years for the Cornhuskers. End up beating UCLA 5-0, and the offense shine out there in Omaha, Nebraska. So this is definitely going to be an interesting team to watch out there in Chapel Hill. And the number 4 seed is Holy Cross. So this is definitely one of the toughest regionals that I see, in my opinion, so far that we're looking at. You have Nebraska team offense is definitely going to travel. Oklahoma, really nice pitching staff for that lineup, really banging out of the ballpark too. And then North Carolina. I am going to go with North Carolina, but the runner-up, though, is either going to be Nebraska or Oklahoma because I believe that Kyson Witherspoon will be going in game number 1 against Nebraska. And you know what? I'm going to go with Nebraska. I think that Oklahoma will beat them in game number 1, but I think that Nebraska comes back out of the losers bracket, but it won't be enough as North Carolina has just got too much. But I do like the way that this Nebraska team has been playing down the stretch, especially the way that they played in Omaha. If they could play like that, they could really make a run and make some noise in Chapel Hill. But I just think that North Carolina is going to be a little bit too much for them. So I have North Carolina, the number 5 overall national seed, advancing with a 3 seed in this bracket. Nebraska finishing as the runner-up. Now let's go on to the number 12 overall national seed, the Oregon Ducks, first year of the Big Ten. And then we have the number 2 seed, Arizona, the first year in the Big 12. They won the Big 12 conference tournament. Maybe on the outside looking in as being a top 16 host. This is definitely a really talented number 2 seed walking into Eugene. Number 3 seed is Cal Poly. They ended up winning their conference tournament championship game against UC Irvine, who was also in the field. So you have 2 Big West teams in the field. And then Utah Valley, who's definitely been in this tournament over the past couple of years, the 4 seed there. So really 4 talented ball clubs heading out there in Eugene. Oregon definitely has a nice offense. I think this is also going to be an offensive regional. But give me Oregon here to advance. I know that a lot of people are going to be picking Arizona, but I am going to go with Oregon in the home ballpark there. So give me the Ducks. I'm going to have Arizona. So once again, I have both the number 1 and number 2 seeds being the favorites in this regional. So we have number 5 seed North Carolina and number 12 seed Oregon facing off in the super regional in that specific pod. Now let's move on down to the final pairing in this side of the regional. It is the Conway Regional, which features the number 13 seed Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I believe, D1 Baseball had them as in the final projection as being a top 8 national seed. Ended up not being the case as they were the number 13 overall national seed. So a little bit of a back and forth arguments there could be said for Coastal Carolina being snubbed of a top 8 national seed, but they are still hosting in the first round of this tournament. They are the winners of the Sun Belt Conference tournament. Like I mentioned, they ended up winning 7-5 against Southern Miss, and this is a heck of a ball club. Their pitching staff, definitely one of the best in the Sun Belt. And the number 2 seed, the Florida Gators, are back here, and honestly, what a turnaround for Florida this season. They started SEC play 1-11. And ended up finishing the regular season with 15 wins and ended up piling up some more wins in Hoover. So that's definitely going to be a dangerous ball club, though they are dealing with some injuries. Though even with the injuries, they're still a really talented ball club. And then number 3 seed, how about East Carolina? They're back in the field. Usually we see East Carolina as the 1 or the 2 seed, and now they are the number 3 seed. Cliff Godwin squad had to win the tournament with their RPIs in the 50s. So they ended up beating Tulane pretty handily in the American Athletic Conference tournament. So East Carolina is back into the field after last season. They are the number 16 seed hosting that crazy regional with Evansville getting out of there, as well as Wake Forest. So East Carolina is back into the field at 64. And then Fairfield, the 4 seed, the Stags, are in the Conway Regional. So this is a very talented 4 teams as well. This is a really balanced regional. And I have another upset. I mean, it's hard to bet against Florida once it comes to this tournament, especially with Kevin O'Sullivan. Florida, even with the injuries, still talented. Maybe not as talented as they were as last year, but I think that Florida will have enough pitching to get through this. So give me the Gators to move on there. And I will have Coastal Carolina as the runner-up there. So another 2 seed and then another SEC team advancing on to the super regional round with Florida moving on there. Now let's move on to the number 4 overall national seed, the Auburn Tigers. What a season it was for Auburn. And they had a top 5 RPI that vaulted them all the way to this number 4 overall national seed. And then we have another ACC school, the NC State Wolfpack is the number 2 seed. Stetson, what a story for Stetson if you weren't paying attention over the weekend, the ASUN championship went into a lengthy rain delay with Florida Gulf Coast being up 6-5 in the sixth inning. They ended up giving the win to Florida Gulf Coast, but ended up giving the automatic bid to Stetson. So Stetson and Florida Gulf Coast ended up being co-champs, but since Stetson was a higher overall seed in the conference tournament, Stetson was able to get the automatic bid. So some saying it's kind of fluky, but Stetson is still here as the number 3 seed in the Auburn Regional. And then Central Connecticut State, really 2 phenomenal games against Long Island. Whoever came out of that is going to be a tough out there. So Central Connecticut State, definitely a scrappy ball club, being the number 4 seed. But once again, I am going to go with chalk here. I just think that Auburn and NC State are just too talented of ball clubs. I think that they're going to face off a couple of times. But I'm going to go with Auburn to win this one, setting up an all SEC Super Regional with Florida and Auburn. So now that is our left side of the bracket. Now let's move on to the right side of the bracket as we scroll all the way up to the number 2 overall national seed is the Texas Longhorns, like I mentioned. Throughout the season, they were projected the number 1 overall national seed, but I'm sure that they are quite pleased being the number 2 overall national seed in their first season in the Southeastern Conference. Number 2 seed is UTSA. Both of these teams did face off earlier in the season. It was a heck of a game. UTSA definitely, they did not win the Conference USA. They did not win the American Championship. They got bounced by Tulane, but they had a good enough resume to get them in, and they are locked into the number 2 seed in the Austin Regional. Kansas State, they were the darlings of last year's tournament, ended up winning the Fayetteville Regional when Arkansas was a top 8 national seed. Kansas State made it all the way to the Supers, but failed to make it to Omaha last year. And then Houston Christian, what a story for Houston Christian. It looked like that Southeastern Louisiana or UTGRV was going to run away with the Southland Championship, but Houston Christian, the number 6 seed, ended up beating the 7th seed in the tournament in New Orleans. So Houston Christian, we see them in Austin. I think that even with the injuries, Texas is going to be too much, but I do like UTSA getting out of this as the runner-up. But I just think that Texas, I really like their draw for them. They do get Kansas State, who's a scrappy ball club, and then UTSA, a team that's played them really strong earlier in the season. But I am going to go with Texas moving on there. So now let's go on to Los Angeles Regional, where we have the number 15 overall seed, the UCLA Bruins, out of the Big Ten. And then the number 2 seed is UC Irvine, a heck of a ball club out there in the Big West. Arizona State, one of the bubble teams from the Big 12, gets into the field. We'll talk about one of the other ones here in a couple of minutes. They are the 3 seed, and then the number 4 seed, Fresno State. I really like this Fresno State team, and this is a really balanced regional. All West Coast ball clubs who could definitely take down UCLA. And you know what? We saw with Evansville, it feels like we see it pretty much every single tournament. Usually I don't pick a 4 seed, but I'm going to do it. Give me Fresno State to get out of this regional. So a little bit of chaos happening. There always is a chaos regional. Feels like every single year. So I'm going to go with the 4 seed Fresno State. They're going to shock a lot of people on Friday night and more. So give me Fresno State. So let's have a little bit of fun here with these predictions. So that's our first major upset that we see in this field of 64. And I'm not going to have UCLA being the runner-up. I'm actually going to have UC Irvine, the Anteaters, out of the Big West being the runner-up there. That's a heck of a ball club there. So give me Fresno State, the 4 seed. Making another Cinderella story. Hey, they did it back in 2008. Maybe they'll have a party like it's 2008 if they can do it once again. So that's our first major upset there. Now we move on to the Oxford Regional, where we have the number 10 seed Ole Miss. What a season for Ole Miss. This was a team that was projected to finish 15th overall in the SEC. That's second to last, and ended up having a pretty good season. They were the number 7 seed in the SEC tournament, ended up making it all the way to the championship before losing to Vanderbilt in a run-1 ball game. And Ole Miss is led by ace Hunter Elliott, and Hunter Elliott definitely has some big game pitching. He was one of the stars whenever Ole Miss won it all in 2022. And the offense, definitely one of the talented offenses in the entire SEC. This is going to be a heck of a regional, folks. You want to tune in this one because they also had number 2 seed Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech cruised to an ACC regular season title And honestly, you could say they got snubbed as a top 16 seed. And if you're watching the selection show, they were pretty pissed off about not being able to host. So this is a team that you definitely don't want to face off against. So we had number 3 seed Western Kentucky champs out of the Conference USA. We do have 2 teams with Western Kentucky and as well as Dallas Baptist in the field. So we have 2 teams from the Conference USA. And then number 4 seed Murray State, they ended up winning their respective conference tournament as well. I've really been going back and forth on this regional. Will it be Ole Miss? Will the home crowd prevail them? But will Georgia Tech be able to handle this one? I am going to go with another upset here, Georgia Tech over Ole Miss, as I have the number 2 seed Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. All I needed to see was the reaction. I think that this team is definitely got some motivation like TCU. Maybe TCU felt they were snubbed. Georgia Tech is a very talented ball club, and I think that if Ole Miss doesn't use Hunter Elliott, I think that Georgia Tech offense can really shine. An offense ballpark, I think that there's going to be a lot of home runs out there in Swayze Field. Not against Ole Miss, they're a very talented team, but I just think that there's going to be a lot of parity in this year's field of 64. So give me Georgia Tech over Ole Miss in the Oxford Regional. So now let's move on to the Athens Regional, the number 10 overall seed, the Georgia Bulldogs, another SEC team hosting. And then we had the number 2 seed out of the ACC, Duke. Another bubble team that got into the field, Oklahoma State out of the Big 12. And then Binghamton is the 4 seed there. So once again, I'm going to have another number 1 and number 3 seed advancing here. I'm going to have Georgia. So setting up a Georgia Tech versus Georgia. I feel like we have it pretty much every postseason. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. I'm actually going to go with Oklahoma State being the runner-up. It feels like Oklahoma State, whenever they're hosting, they don't play really well. And when they go on the road, they tend to shine. So who knows about this team? But I'm going to go with Georgia. The pitching, definitely you could say is a problem. But I think that playing at home with that type of offense, I think it's going to play this weekend in Athens. So give me Georgia to advance on. Now let's move on to the Baton Rouge Regional, where we had the number 6 overall national seed, the LSU Tigers. LSU, their offense has definitely been troubling down the stretch there. So if you want to put one negative on this team, definitely, though their pitching staff, especially their bullpen, definitely has some stars in the making. And then with a 1-2 punch of Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, I think that LSU could definitely be set up for a run here. They have a familiar face in number 2 seed Dallas Baptist. LSU and Dallas Baptist did play a couple of months ago in Arlington out there in the Texas Rangers field, and then LSU ended up winning that game 7-3 there. So familiar faces in this regional. Number 3 seed is Rhode Island, and then number 4 seed Little Rock. Arkansas Little Rock, they went 8-16 in conference play, being the 8th seed, and ended up winning the conference tournament. So a little bit of Cinderella story out there in Baton Rouge. I don't see any Cinderella stories here. I have LSU. Moving on to this one, I think it's going to be LSU and Dallas Baptist in this one. I think they're going to face off at least twice. So give me LSU, though, advancing on. I think that Alex Box Magic is going to be a little too much as LSU at home has tended to play really well throughout this season. So give me the Tigers to advance on there. And they are paired up with the number 11 overall seed, the Clemson Tigers out of the ACC. And then they have the number 2 seed West Virginia, 3 seed is Kentucky, and 4 seed USC Upstate. So Kentucky, one of those teams that was on the bubble that wasn't really the last 4 teams in, as you notice the graphic and the selection show. Kentucky finished 13-17 in the SEC. We were all wondering if it was enough, as they did get out at early on in the SEC tournament by Oklahoma. West Virginia, talented squad in the Big 12, though they are not playing their best baseball heading into this tournament. They got swept by Kansas a couple of series ago. So I'm actually going to go with Clemson going out of this, but I'm going to go with Kentucky. Kentucky's a scrappy ball club, man. The way that they play it, they are going to make you earn every single pitch. They like to see a lot of bases, like to play a lot of small ball. This is going to be a Kentucky team that has played up to the big boys. They played really well against Texas. They have a series win against Tennessee. So Kentucky has played in the SEC. I think it's going to really help them in this stretch. And West Virginia, don't get me wrong, this was a team that I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, talk about North Carolina. They have the offense to get through this regional. They made it last year and made it to the Super Regional facing off against North Carolina. So this is going to be really interested in regional. Whoever comes out of this is definitely going to be a really nice position in the super regional round. So we do have LSU and Clemson in the super regional round, both national seeds moving on there. So we have one more pod to get to here in this regional round with a 14 overall seed, another SEC team, the Tennessee Volunteers, the reigning national champs. Then we have the 2 seed Wake Forest out of the ACC. Cincinnati is the 3 seed. Then Miami of Ohio, the champs, out of the MAC. Tennessee is definitely going to be the star pick here, especially playing their home ballpark. One of the more talented teams in this field. They did lose, I believe it was like 5 of the last 6 of the last 7 series. They ended up making a really good run there in the SEC tournament. They ended up beating Alabama first, then took down Texas, and then ended up losing to Vanderbilt. But I think that Tennessee, especially with Liam Doyle, I'll be interested to see if Doyle pitches against Miami of Ohio or if they save him for the winner of Cincinnati and Wake Forest, even though I think they're going to be set up. Marcus Phillips is definitely another star to watch in the Tennessee regional. Their offense is just going to perform well at home. So give me Tennessee and give me Wake Forest, the number 2 seed here, to be the runner-up out of the ACC. Cincinnati got a really talented offense. I mean, there's going to be a lot of homers in this regional, a lot of runs, a lot of high-scoring matchups, but I'm going to go with Tennessee out of the SEC to advance there. And then the Fayetteville regional, we have number 1 seed Arkansas, number 4 seed North Dakota State, number 2 seed Kansas out of the Big 12, and then Creighton, the champs, out of the Big East. One of the Big East teams that we're really watching on Selection Sunday was UConn, and UConn ended up not making the field as well as Xavier. So Creighton, the only Big East representative in this field. So we have Arkansas, a team that definitely is one of the more complete teams in the SEC. Got one of the most talented pitching staffs, and then their offense can definitely smash the baseball out of the ballpark. So I'm going to go with Arkansas, and I am going to go with Kansas. I mean, I know that I've been picking a lot of 1 and 2s, but that's just how I see it in most of these regionals. So I'm going to go with Arkansas, setting up another SEC versus SEC matchup with Tennessee and Arkansas. So that is it for our 2025 college baseball preview and predictions. Let me know who you have advancing on to the next round. Maybe some of your surprises that you have advancing on. Maybe see a 4 seed like me with Fresno State. But that is it for today's video. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I will catch you all next time. So for now, so long.